You know that exact moment. I mean, it usually hits somewhere in your 40s or 50s, right? You're sitting around a table talking with friends, maybe catching up about the past summer or reminiscing about the holidays.
Yeah, just having a totally normal conversation.
Exactly. And suddenly, someone in the group just sighs and says, I just can't believe how fast time is going.
And almost on cue, everyone else at the table nods. It is a completely universal experience.
Right.
That jarring realization that birthdays are arriving sooner, and a decade that once felt just impossibly long now feels like a brief little chapter.
It honestly feels as if time itself has just quietly, secretly begun to speed up. But before we, buy into that illusion, we are going to look at what is actually happening inside our heads.
Which is so much more interesting, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. Welcome to this deep dive. Today we are exploring a really fascinating article by the Finch Q team, and it's called The Architecture of Time: Why Years Accelerate with Age.
It's a great piece. Really eye-opening.
It really is. So our mission today is to figure out exactly why childhood summers felt like they lasted forever, why adulthood decades just seem to vanish into thin air, and how we can hack our own brains to stretch time back out.
Because the incredible kind of counterintuitive reality the Finch Q team presents here is that time isn't speeding up at all.
Right.
Your brain is just deleting the routine.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the baseline, right?
Yeah.
The cold, hard math of how we age.
Yeah, so the mathematics of a year is the foundational layer here. If we want to understand this feeling of time slipping away, we first have to look at what psychologists call the proportional theory of time perception.
Or proportional theory.
Okay, and the core idea is that each year we live becomes a mathematically smaller fraction of our total lived experience.
Okay.
The brain measures everything relatively. It basically uses your past experience as the denominator, to measure new experiences against.
Okay, so if you are 10 years old, a single year represents 10% of your entire life.
Exactly. But actually, it's even more extreme than that, since most of us retain practically zero conscious memory from our first 2 years.
Oh, right, because you don't remember being a baby.
Exactly. So a single year for a 10-year-old actually represents nearly 1/8 of everything they can consciously remember.
Wow.
1/8.
Yeah. You are measuring a standard 365 days against an extremely small backlog of historical data.
So structurally, mathematically, that year feels absolutely enormous to the child because relative to their personal history, it is an enormous chunk of time.
Spot on. But then by the time someone reaches 50 years old, that denominator has grown massive.
Right.
For a 50-year-old, 1 year represents just 2% of their life.
2%? That's a huge drop from 10%.
It really is. And for an 80-year-old, a single year is closer to 1.25%. The calendar on the wall has not changed at all. A day is still 24 hours. But the relative weight of each year has just quietly shrunk.
That makes me think of it's like a brand new roll of paper towels.
Oh, I like that. How so? Well, when you buy a fresh roll and you tear off a few sheets to, wipe up a spill, the roll doesn't really look any different.
Right. It still looks completely full.
Exactly. Tearing off a few sheets doesn't seem to change the overall size at all because the roll is just so thick. But when you get to the very end of that roll...
There was basically nothing left.
Yeah, when you're down to the cardboard tube, taking off just one single sheet makes the whole thing look drastically smaller.
Oh, that's such a perfect way to look at it.
The sheet is the exact same size it always was, but the proportion has completely shifted.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize the math. The value of the unit, the single sheet of paper, the single year of life, it remains constant, but its relative impact changes drastically as the total supply dwindles.
But let me ask you this. Is our brain literally sitting there doing fractional math in the background, like doing long division?
No, of course not. Our brains are not doing conscious math. You are subconsciously calculating, this is only 2% of my existence, therefore I shall perceive it as short.
Right, that would be exhausting.
It would. But the human brain is just exquisitely sensitive to proportion. It processes reality through comparison.
Okay, but the math only explains the calendar. I mean, it gives us the inescapable reality of the denominator getting bigger, but it doesn't really explain the physical feeling in our heads as we just live through a Tuesday.
No, it doesn't.
Because if a year is mathematically smaller, how does our physical brain actually encode that shrinkage? I mean, we aren't just doing fractions. We are living a life. We are making memories.
And that brings us to the second piece of the puzzle, the cognitive mechanism that the Finch Q team calls memory density.
Memory density.
Right. The brain records time not by the steady ticking of a clock, but by the specific novel events that punctuate those seconds.
Okay, so it's about the events, not the literal seconds.
Exactly. Think about when you are young. Almost everything you encounter is entirely new. You are basically living in an era of firsts.
Yeah, like your first bike ride or the first time navigating a new school hallway.
First trip away from home without your parents.
Right, all of that.
Every single one of those novel experiences forces the brain to build a brand new neural pathway.
Because it's never seen it before.
Precisely. And you can think of these new pathways as heavy mental markers or like mileposts planted along the road of time.
Mileposts. Okay, I like that visual.
So when you look back down a road that is absolutely packed with these mileposts, the road appears very long and expansive. The journey looks huge because there is so much dense, newly encoded data recorded along the way.
So youth stretches out because the brain is working overtime to build the infrastructure of your reality. It's laying down all the tracks.
Exactly. It's constantly building. But as adulthood settles in, things change. We drive the exact same roads to work.
We work similar days.
We follow highly predictable schedules day in and day out.
Yeah.
We shift from discovery into routine.
Right.
And this is where we have to look at the brain as an energy-saving organ.
It wants to be efficient.
Very efficient. Burning a new neural pathway for a novel event takes massive caloric energy. It is physically exhausting for the brain to learn something completely new.
So it tries to avoid doing that.
Exactly. So to conserve energy, the brain relies on what we call a predictive processing model.
Predictive processing.
Yeah. If you drive the same route to work 500 times, your brain stops actively recording the journey.
It just zones out.
Pretty much. It predicts every turn, every stoplight, every bump in the road. And because the prediction matches reality perfectly, no new memory needs to be written.
It just uses the cached version of the commute, like a web browser?
That's a great analogy, yes. It stops dropping mileposts because it already knows the route.
Okay, wait, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
Because if you ask any adult, they will tell you that adulthood is by far the most exhausting phase of life.
Oh, without a doubt.
Right. We're constantly juggling a million things. We have work deadlines, we have to run errands, we have bills to pay, we are managing households and families. It is just a nonstop barrage of intense activity.
It is very intense.
So shouldn't all that intense busyness, that sheer volume of doing things, create more memories? I mean, shouldn't a constantly busy year feel much longer than a lazy childhood summer where you did nothing?
That is such a good point, and it's a very common point of confusion. But to understand the architecture of time, we have to clearly separate busyness from novelty.
Busyness from novelty.
Okay, they are fundamentally different things to your nervous system. Routine busyness is, by definition, predictable.
I mean, I guess it is, yeah.
You might be answering 200 emails a day, paying 5 different utility bills, and driving to 3 different grocery stores. You are physically and emotionally exhausted.
Definitely exhausted.
But the brain categorizes all of that activity as routine maintenance.
Routine maintenance. Because it's a predictable kind of exhaustion. You know what's coming.
Precisely. The brain essentially says, I have seen this email inbox before. I have paid a water bill before. I have navigated this grocery store aisle 100 times.
So it doesn't bother recording it.
Exactly. It says, I do not need to spend precious metabolic energy recording this Tuesday as a unique event.
Wow.
Without novelty, those incredibly busy days just blur together into a single compressed file.
And then you just arrive at December completely burned out.
Completely burned out, but with very few new mileposts to actually look back on. You have plenty of activity, zero memory density.
Zero memory density. That distinction between busyness and novelty is huge. I mean, routine maintenance really explains why adulthood naturally compresses time.
It's the biological default.
But I feel like there is another layer we need to address here because it feels like this phenomenon has become particularly severe lately, like in the last 10 years or so.
Oh, absolutely.
It feels like the modern world has just poured gasoline on this time compression fire.
The modern world absolutely exacerbates the biological baseline. And that brings us to a massive shift in cultural complexity.
Okay.
The Finch Q team article points out that decades ago, life offered far fewer choices and inputs.
Right. Things were simpler.
Much simpler. A typical household might have had just 2 television channels. You watched whatever was broadcasting, or you turned it off and engaged with your immediate physical environment.
And today we face an absolute avalanche of choice.
That's staggering.
It is. Streaming services alone offer more content than any single human being could possibly watch in several lifetimes.
True.
Then you add in social media algorithms designed to feed you endless novelty, constant news alerts popping up on your phone, podcasts, text messages, emails.
It never stops.
We are just saturated in content from the moment we wake up to the moment we fall asleep.
Which presents a really fascinating paradox. Because you would logically assume that consuming thousands of different articles, videos, and social media posts would provide the brain with a massive amount of novelty.
Right, because it's technically all new information.
Exactly. You would think this digital abundance would create millions of new mileposts and stretch our perception of time out indefinitely.
But it's doing the exact opposite.
The exact opposite.
It makes me think of mixing colors on a palette, like paint.
Paint. Okay, I'm listening.
So if you carefully paint with a few distinct, bold colors, you get a beautiful, vibrant image with really clear edges and contrast.
Right.
And the contrast is what makes the image memorable. You can see the distinct shapes.
Makes sense.
But if you just take every single color of paint in the art store and dump it all into a single bucket and mix it rapidly together,
You definitely don't get a super rainbow.
no, instead of a vibrant rainbow, you just get a blurry, muddy gray.
That is a phenomenal analogy. That muddy gray is exactly what happens to your memory encoding during information overload.
The brain just gets overwhelmed.
Completely. The brain requires contrast and negative space to form a distinct memory.
It needs the empty space around the event to make it stand out.
Yes. When you are scrolling through 100 different lives on social media, watching a prestige television show, and reading a news alert all in the span of 30 minutes.
Which we all do.
Which we all do.
Yeah.
But the brain cannot possibly place a milepost for all of that data. The sheer volume of information completely overwhelms the brain's encoding capacity.
So the brain just throws its hands up and says, you know, I can't process this many first, so I'm going to process none of them.
It really does. It forces the brain into an aggressive editing mode. Individual moments lose their clarity and their distinct edges.
Because it's all happening too fast.
Right, because the inputs are changing so rapidly, nothing gets committed to deep memory. It all just becomes that blurry gray paint you mentioned.
Wow.
Days blend into weeks, and weeks slip past totally unnoticed. What feels to you like time artificially accelerating is actually just your lived experience rapidly compressing under the weight of cognitive overload.
So the irony is that in our attempt to consume everything, we end up remembering almost nothing.
Exactly. We consume it all and retain none of it.
So we have this perfect storm, really. We have the sheer mathematics of aging shrinking the relative size of a year.
The paper towel roll.
Yes, the paper towel roll. We have the brain's evolutionary drive to conserve energy by deleting predictable routines.
Routine maintenance.
Right. And we have an information landscape that overwhelms our memory encoding with a muddy gray blur of content.
A very potent combination.
So what does this all mean for us? Because we cannot magically become 10-year-olds again to regain that mathematical advantage.
Unfortunately not.
And realistically, we aren't going to throw our smartphones into the ocean and move to a cabin in the woods.
No, we still have to live in the modern world.
So how do we hit the brakes? How do we take back the clock?
Well, the source material offers a highly practical and honestly deeply relieving solution.
Relieving is a good word for it.
The first step is acknowledging that time is not actually running away from you.
Right. It feels like it, but it isn't.
Exactly. The physical parameters of your reality are stable. To make time feel wide again, we have to take control of how those hours are experienced.
Okay, how do we do that?
We must actively disrupt the brain's predictive processing by intentionally placing new milestones.
Okay, but I have to say, if you are listening to this on your morning commute, the idea of having to invent massive new milestones to stretch out your time probably sounds completely exhausting.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds like a lot of work.
Right. The thought of planning an elaborate vacation or taking up extreme sports just to slow down a Tuesday, it feels like adding more busyness to a life that is already full of routine maintenance.
Yeah, nobody wants another chore.
Exactly. So I don't need to go skydiving every weekend to stretch out my year, do I? I don't need to force my brain to record a massive milepost.
Not at all. And that is the brilliance of the Finch-Q Project's approach. They realize that the brain's predictive machinery can be interrupted by incredibly small interventions.
Small interventions.
Yes. These milestones do not have to be massive, dramatic, life-altering events. They can simply be small, highly intentional changes in your everyday patterns.
So what do they call that?
The goal is to introduce micro-novelty.
Micro-novelty. Okay, so what does micro-novelty actually look like on a random Tuesday afternoon?
It is about changing the data your brain is receiving just enough to force it off autopilot.
Just a little nudge.
Right. It involves intentionally changing the way you commute, perhaps taking a slightly different street, or even just walking on the opposite side of the sidewalk.
Really, just walking on the other side of the street.
Yes. Or it could be as simple as using your non-dominant hand to stir your morning coffee.
Wait. Just noticing my energy or stirring coffee with my left hand is enough to create a new mental marker. That seems almost too simple.
I know it sounds too simple, but it works because you are breaking the prediction.
Breaking the prediction?
Yeah. When you use your non-dominant hand, your brain suddenly has to pay attention to the physics of the coffee cup.
Oh, because you're clumsy with that hand.
Exactly. It can't use the cached memory of the 1,000 other times you stirred coffee perfectly. It has to wake up and actually record the present moment.
It's like an error code pops up and the brain has to pay attention.
Yes, perfectly said. Stepping out of routine maintenance mode tells your nervous system, hey, pay attention to this specific sensory input.
Wow.
By paying attention to the micro patterns inside ordinary days, time stops feeling invisible.
The day stops being a gray blur and starts showing its shape and structure again.
Right.
It stops feeling like an avalanche of events that is just happening to you and starts feeling like something you are actively living.
That's beautifully put.
Yeah.
And the Finch Q team actually notes that their next piece will dive even deeper into specific tools for this.
No, nice.
Yeah, spanning both ancient mindfulness practices and modern psychological techniques, all designed to help people intentionally create these everyday milestones.
That'll be fascinating to look into.
It will, but the underlying philosophy remains the same. You cannot change the speed of the clock, but you have immense power over how full the road feels as you travel down it.
It is such an empowering shift in perspective. It really is.
It puts you back in the driver's seat.
It does. So to synthesize this incredible journey we've been on today, time is not your enemy.
No, it isn't.
You aren't losing time. Your perspective is simply shifting as you accumulate more history. We looked at the brutal but honest math of aging, where every passing year is a smaller fraction of your whole existence.
Yep, the proportion shifts.
We uncovered the hidden mechanics of memory density, learning how our brains conserve energy by actively deleting the predictable routines that make up so much of adulthood.
That routine maintenance.
Right. We saw how the avalanche of modern information overload actually strips away the distinct edges of our memories, turning abundance into a blur.
The muddy gray paint.
Yes, the muddy gray taint. But most importantly, we learned that by intentionally creating small, mindful milestones, by injecting micro-novelty into our daily routines, we can wake the brain up and make the years feel wonderfully wide again.
It really just comes down to giving the mind something distinct to hold on to.
Yeah.
Preventing the days from collapsing into that compressed file of routine maintenance.
For you listening right now, I really hope this serves as the ultimate aha moment.
I hope so too.
It is a brilliant shortcut to understanding the invisible mechanics of your own mind. You aren't crazy, and time isn't out to get you. Your brain is just being incredibly efficient, maybe a little too efficient for its own good.
Very true. And if we connect this cognitive architecture to the bigger picture, it leaves us with something profoundly actionable to consider.
Oh, what's that?
Well, if our perception of time's length is entirely dictated by the novelty of our memories, could we artificially elongate a wonderful weekend just by taking a radically different road home?
Oh, wow.
Or, eating something we've never tasted before?
Yeah.
What if the secret to a long life isn't necessarily living to 100,
Right.
but just packing more first into an ordinary week?